Hi, it's Maria Gotch. I'm the co-founder of the FinTech Innovation Lab, which is an accelerator program focused on helping emerging technology companies get access to large financial institutions. And I'm really thrilled this morning to be here with Cris Conde, who is our executive in residence, who is also the CEO of SunGard, who's got, I've got a couple questions for him for advice for some of the FinTech companies.
Thank you for having me.
So Cris, one of the hardest things is to find the right person to talk to in a large financial institution. So what advice do you have for entrepreneurs in figuring out who is that right person?
Who's the right person to talk to? I think you have to find the person that actually is willing to make an emotional commitment to the success of the product rollout. So what does emotional commitment mean? It means how you get emotional commitment. You get it by co-creating the solution and the use case. Even though you have ideas on what the use case should be and how to roll it out, it should be a conversation, not a bunch of slides. You should listen, not talk. Let the other person feel like they've co-created the use case and the solution. Then, at the end of that session, the person will have ownership. If you're really lucky, the person will have so much commitment to the solution that they will put their career on the line, on the solution. And I've seen a whole generation of bank CIOs who became CIOs because they put their job on the line by backing Unix or backing some other technology.
Oh, right.
So this does happen. It is possible.
Yeah, great. You have been a mentor for the New York program for the FinTech Innovation Lab and also for London, and have seen companies go from sort of early stage to growth, and some of them go and want to grow overseas. So from your vantage point of sitting in the two markets, what advice would you give to an entrepreneur who is, say, based in London and wants to come and expand to the US market?
Well, for an entrepreneur based in London wanting to come to the US, first, why is this important? It's important because you have access to more revenues, but also the multiple on will be much higher. In my experience, there's a multiple expansion of at least 50% by being successful in your home market, but also in the US. Being successful in the US matters more than the revenues that will come from the US.
And what advice would you give them about how to enter a new market, particularly if it's overseas, different time zone, sometimes a different language?
Entering a new market is tricky, partly because negotiations are done differently, but also because of the requirements. It's very important that the entrepreneur listen to the requirements, because sometimes when entering a new country, doing 80% of the job won't get you 80% of revenues. It will give you 0% of revenues. So there are regulatory hurdles, there are functionality hurdles that are specific to each country. You have to do them. It's a pass or fail test.
So Cris, you've got a very interesting background, and that's why we're thrilled to have you join as our executive in residence at the FinTech Innovation Lab. You started a 3-person startup, and then you became the CEO of SunGard, which went public and private and then public again. So what advice would you give to an entrepreneur who's sitting with 2 of his coworkers and thinking about, how do I scale this company? So what are 2 or 3 key lessons that you would recommend that this entrepreneur and their team follow?
I think the leadership style of a CEO needs to change as the company grows. And the ones that don't change their leadership style don't make it to the next stage. There's actually very few entrepreneurs that have made it to be heads of Fortune 500 companies, maybe 8.
Really?
And that's because the leadership style needs to be very different. When you're small, you need to be very command and control. There's simply no other way to do it. Then you need to delegate, but to very trusted parties. Then after that, you need to give full authority to people that you didn't hire and hold them accountable with full authority. That full authority method scales infinitely.
And so that would also mean, as an entrepreneur, you need to know what your skill set is and what you can do and not do.
You have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at, and you also need to know when to look for advice, and you have to have trusted advisors or mentors that can tell you when you are not cutting it for the next stage. You know, if a company is growing 300% per year, it's unlikely that the CEO's management skills are going to grow at a 300% rate.
Right.
So you need that growth rate in leadership ability won't happen organically. You need help.
Does that come from a board? Does that come from your investors? In your experience, what was the profile of the people that were the most helpful to you?
The help will come from different people, and it's very situational. It's a very trusted relationship. It doesn't really matter whether it's a board member or a mentor or an advisor or somebody from, say, the FinTech lab. It's a question of trust and somebody that you are okay telling you something that you don't want to hear.
So Cris, thanks very much. It's been a great conversation with you. Appreciate you taking the time. The FinTech Innovation Lab is a program to connect emerging technology companies with great ideas and innovation to large financial institutions in New York City. So if you are an entrepreneur with a great idea and a great innovation and want to access this great network that we've built in New York, we would love to speak with you and hope you apply to our 2020 program. And you can find more information at FinTech Innovation Lab, New York. Thanks very much.